Sorry to you guys that were on my last live call. We had a few little technical things happen, but I'm going to try to run this again today. I've been experimenting with new cameras and things like that. All right, so a warm welcome to all of you again. I apologize for the problematic audio issues we've been having. I think what I'll do is I'll just go to my other um, setup, which is a little bit more straightforward, and I'll get up another backing track that I can use. So everything should work now. I think I've located. I'm just going to load up my backing track software because I can see what's going on now with my setup. And we'll do a rerun of this one. I'll just get everything good to go and then we'll be away. Okay. All right. Just stop this recording. All right, you might not be able to hear me now, but I'll try to fix that now. All right. Okay. Hope you guys can hear the guitar okay there. Cool. So I'll give this a go like this now. Oh, this has been pretty exciting getting this one started. Okay, I think I'm good to go now. I've got a bit of an alternative setup going. And let's do this. So a warm welcome to all of you. Please let me know where you're from in the chat and if you'd like to ask any questions as part of this call. All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's good that it's going all right now. So okay, we're fine to go. Grab your guitar maybe, because this should be a good session to play along with me. I'm going to redo the intro from my last attempt at this live session. If it drops out, I will be doing a recording on this topic anyway, so you can catch the replay on YouTube. Okay, guys. Well, without further ado, let's kick off this live session and see what happens. Here we go.
Screwy, this won't help me! Hey! Save your strength. There'll be another time.
The princess. You have to take care of her. You hear me? Huh?
I love you.
I know.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of FretDojo Live. Greg O'Rourke here, and it's good to see some of you guys live on the call, and a warm welcome to everyone watching the replay. In today's live session, we're going to be looking at a lick that I've called Leia's Love Story, hence the interesting little clip we played at the start there. I'll show you everything about this lick and how it works and how to extract some concepts throughout this live session. So let's get into this one right after this. Okay guys, well I hope you enjoy today's show. We're going to be getting into some pretty cool stuff to do with this lick that I'm going to play for you in a moment. Some really nice intervallic approaches, horizontal approaches on the fretboard, and some nice twists and turns that you can take over a dominant chord. Alright, so without further ado, we're going to get into playing this one. But before we start, make sure that you have a look at the link that's on your screen right now, FretDojo.com PDF, and there you can get a PDF transcription of this lick that we're doing, as well as of the lick in a few positions on the fretboard, so that it's a bit more useful than just learning it in the single position that we're mainly focusing on today. So make sure you grab your PDF and let's get into the actual meat of the material today. So let's go to a close-up and see how this lick works and what it sounds like. Let's give it a go. Alright, so hope you can see my guitar on your screen now. I'm going to play along with a backing track to this line, and the reason I called it Leia's Love Story, it was a little bit reminiscent of Star Wars, this one, so especially at the start of it. So let's see if you can catch that as I play this line for you now. Here we go. Alright, so did you hear when I played it then I was manipulating the rhythms a little bit, because it does sound quite pedestrian at this tempo to just kind of play, you know, boring old eighth notes all the time. So whenever you learn a lick like this, don't just stick to the straight eighth note rhythms. You might be able to do something else here. Etc. So so that's instantly something you can do to liven these kind of lines up a bit. It's a very beautiful line, this one. I really like a lot of aspects of this, and in particular it sounds nice if you use chords underneath this one, like let's say you're playing a solo guitar gig or something like that. You can do something very nice if you just add some very basic chords and notes, bass notes underneath, sort of like this sort of thing. That sort of thing. So yeah, experiment with adding some bass notes underneath, but mainly what we're going to focus on today is extracting some concepts out of this one. Now, as always, what I say with these sort of lines is learn them first, get them under your fingers, bust them out over a few tunes like All the Things You Are or Blue Bossa or something like that, just to get a grip with them. But you'll find that if you just learn something like this and that's all you do, you're going to find it doesn't really take you very far. So what we need to do now is look at playing the line more extracting the concepts from the line, seeing what the nuts and bolts are of it, so that we can then apply it in a more general way to our soloing. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about with this line is just the physical fact that it moves up and down the fretboard like this. See that beautiful slide you get when you play it in this position? You have to go up there. So moving horizontally, like so this way on the fretboard rather than vertically, like this, is a nice way to get some more expression into your playing. If you just stick to a box pattern when you play, like this sort of thing, you'll find that there's not a lot of expressive character in the notes. So something I want you guys to try this week is when you improvise, see if you can break out of your typical box patterns and move in a more sort of fluid way up and down the fretboard. An easy way that you can do this is simply by getting something like a C major scale. Let's take old boring C major, but let's make it more interesting here. So let's, I'll pick some notes out of C major on the top string. So there's C on the 8th fret. I can go down the scale this way, just down one string, play the open string, coming back up. Okay, and I might go to another shot actually so you can see my guitar a bit more easily. Oh, all of a sudden the backing music started again, but that doesn't matter. That's the magic of live video. Let's go to this shot instead so you can see me a bit better. So playing this scale. All right, so now let's play with the backing track, and I'm just going to play that scale up and down the fretboard. So let's give that a go. All right. And try to get a lot of expressive character in the notes. You can do it on the second string as well. In fact, on any string, of course. See how I'm using vibrato as well? That's a nice way to get some more expression as well. You can get some more kind of, it almost feels like when you do vibrato, it increases the length of the notes. Okay, so that's the first idea you can try right off the gate. You don't even need to learn this lick, but that's just something that inspired me about this lick when I was learning it, is the fact that it moves in a horizontal way on the fretboard in that position. So now let's look at some other ideas that we can use kind of extracting from this lick. What we'll do is we'll get a bit more into the nitty gritty now, and we'll look at a bit of the analysis of this line so that you can get some really nice vocabulary concepts out of it. Okay, so let's go to another shot now. Alrighty, so I might keep my guitar on the screen actually so you can see that as well. All right, so here we have Leia's love story, beautiful line here, and I particularly want to focus on, let's see, looks like my pen isn't working, but I'll just use my mouse. Okay, so this section of the line here. So it's easy to miss this, but it has quite a nice intervallic quality about it. If we listen to the start of the line, just that first bit, it's very lyrical, it's beautiful. So let's have a look at what the intervals are. The first two notes are separated by the interval of a fourth, and the second two intervals are separated also by the interval of a fourth. So it's a nice expressive approach to using fourths intervals in a line. Now, also interestingly, is this line, it's almost like it's a A minor pentatonic scale. It's like just a little fragment out of that. But played in fourths intervals. So this is something I like to do a lot actually, is getting a pentatonic scale but putting interesting intervallic approaches over the pentatonic instead of just playing it like a boring pentatonic scale. I've actually got another quite popular video on my channel called Jazz Guitar Improvisation for Beginners, which goes through this in detail. But we can extract two ideas right away from this line. Firstly, the use of the interval of a fourth and the use of a A minor pentatonic scale over a C major 2-5-1 progression. C major and A minor are relative keys. So pretty much mostly everything that works in A minor will very likely work in C major. So I'm superimposing the sound of an A minor pentatonic over a C major progression. And this is how you can start to sound nice and hip with jazz, because you can start to think about more the like sort of superimposing new chords on top of what would normally be there. Ironically, if you just play things in the key they were intended for, like let's say I see a D minor chord and I play D minor, it'll sound boring, even though you're kind of correct. But if you play something like A minor over a progression like this, all of a sudden it targets some interesting chord tones and you get some kind of nice subtle tension in there. So let's see what happens when I just play sort of intervals over an A minor pentatonic scale over this 2-5-1 progression. Let's give that a try. I'll just go back to my close-up so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Let's give that a go. Okay, so you can hear how there's some really quite interesting modern sounding sort of approaches now that we're getting out of this. So I think that's another idea that you can grab out of this line. So using intervallics and substituting a minor pentatonic over a major progression, a relative substitution. Okay, so let's do some more. We're going to now, but for those of you that are live on the call, leave me any questions that you might have in the chat, and I'm happy to answer anything at the end of the session. But we'll move on now. Let's go to the G7 chord now in the progression. Let's go back to our little analysis page here, and let's see what we can do with this one. So now we have on the G7 some very interesting stuff. So, oh, my pen works now. I don't know why it didn't work before, but it's working now. The magic of live TV. All right, so let's have a look at this segment now. We have an interesting arpeggio on top of this G7. So, a G7 arpeggio sounds like this. We've got G as the root note, B as the third, D as the fifth, and F as the flat 7. Okay, so that sounds pretty boring, but watch what we've got on the G7 in this context. On the notes I've bracketed in that second bar, I have F, A, C, and E. Okay, so this is an arpeggio, but it's not a G7 arpeggio anymore. It's something different. We have, so if I just write out those notes from the lowest note there all the way to the top, we've got F, A, C, and E. So that actually spells an F major 7 arpeggio. Okay, so what we're doing here is superimposing an F major 7 arpeggio over G7. Okay, it's another case, just like how we were kind of superimposing a pentatonic, A minor pentatonic sound in the first bar. In this bar, we're superimposing a major 7 arpeggio over a dominant chord. So one step down from G7 is F, and we play a major 7 arpeggio off that. This is very useful because by doing this, without even having to think too much, we're automatically targeting the upper extensions in the chords. So G7, if related to G7, an E note would be a 13. A C would be an 11. An A would be a 9. And an F would be a flat 7. So all these notes are really what makes jazz sound like jazz. Is targeting these kind of upper extensions, the higher notes. Okay, so it does that first, but then it does something very interesting in the following four notes. Is once again we have an E, but then we've got a B, an A flat, and an F. Now, what's all this about? So let's analyze these intervals. We have a 13, we have a third, we have a flat 9, and a flat 7. So in the second part of the bar, we have these interesting altered tensions, but it's mixed with the 13. So we've got a really interesting mix of of natural tensions and altered tensions. What I like about this is how smoothly the voice leading is. If you look on my guitar once again, I'll just do it so you can see it a bit closer. If we look on my guitar one more time, we have the first arpeggio, F major 7, and then the next one, a little bit of an ant on my guitar there. Let's try again. So F major 7, and then this nice altered chord here. So do you hear how the movement is very smooth between those two? So this very smooth voice leading is really delicious in a jazz line, and is very strong in this example. So so learning that kind of movement is very nice. But what we can do to extract kind of a concept in another way out of this section is to try this. So let's have a look. So going back to the analysis, let's kind of have a think about what sort of the actual kind of arpeggio or chord that's being used, that's kind of being superimposed in that second part there. So we have an E here. Try that again. E. It's not working, but anyway, maybe it'll work now. Okay, here we go. I just need to do that. All right, so we've got an E, we've got a B, we've got an A flat, but I'm just going to respell that as a G sharp. And that F is like that. So this is spelling almost like an E triad with a flat 9 on it. So it's almost like kind of like an E7. I'll put the 7 in brackets there because the 7's not present, but it has got that kind of sound with a flat 9 on it. Now, I just find this interesting, taking this E triad, okay, and playing it over G7, okay, because when you do that, you get a 13 from the E, you get the third from the B, and you get an interesting flat 9 by playing the G sharp, which is the same as A flat. So why don't we try that? What we're going to do is when I get to the G7 chord in the progression, I'm just going to play E triads over it and get that interesting mix of the flat 9 and the natural 13. So once again, seeing one chord on the lead sheet and playing another. Let's see what that sounds like. I really like this effect. Now I'll just go back to a close-up. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a go. So we've got D minor first, and then now I'll do the triad. See, it sounded very kind of out there, but interesting. Once again. How cool is that? So we've got a really, really nice example of a superimposed kind of a triad over a G7 chord. All right, so that's a really lovely effect that if you, once again, you can get a more modern sound. See how I'm getting these modern sounds out of stuff that's quite kind of, when you first play this line, it sounds quite natural, but you can extract some really cool angular concepts out of it. So one more little concept, and then we might leave it there for today, is on the final chord. So I think there was something like this in my previous live show on this channel, but we'll give this one another go. So on the C major. Okay, so that's an interesting note, isn't it? That we've got this F sharp here. Okay, so C major 7. Well, in the key of C major, you usually have an F, but this has an F sharp applied. Okay, and it's quite strongly played as well. So this is an example of Lydian. Okay, so the Lydian mode, it's kind of like a variation on a typical major scale, but it sharpens the 4th note, otherwise known as the 11th. So if we sharpen that, we get this kind of ethereal sort of Lydian sound. Now, what we're going to do is play that again, and why don't we have a listen to the lick again as I play it, and listen out for that interesting note towards the end, and then we're going to do a little exercise on that. Here we go. It's not this one, it's this one. It's pretty unusual in that context. You're not kind of expecting it. So that can be a pretty easy thing if you want to get a bit more interest over that one chord at the end. So let's try that again, but I'm just going to improvise. And this time, when I hit the C major, I'm going to make sure I try to nail that F sharp somewhere in there. But you've got to be a bit careful here because it won't sound that good over the other chords. It will only kind of work over the one chord in this progression, the C major 7. So just be careful with that. All right, so let's give this another go, and I'm just going to improvise putting the Lydian as the last note in the as a note on the C major 7. Okay, so close up now. Oops, wrong one. Here we go. Okay. Have a listen out for that F sharp. Did you hear it? So I nearly lost it there. I'd put it at the wrong spot. Okay, so that sort of shows you how important that placement is with that Lydian. Okay, so in summary, we have quite a nice little collection of ideas that you can get out of this line. So firstly, we've got the idea of playing, horizontally through the fretboard instead of just sticking in one box position. We've got the idea of playing intervallic approaches over pentatonics to relative substitution, so playing A minor pentatonic over a kind of a C major chord progression, very interesting, and then putting some interesting mixed tension approaches over dominant chords, so mixing the 13 with the natural 13 with the flat 9 and using an E triad over the G7 to get that interesting sound, and also playing an F major 7 arpeggio over that chord as well. So a lot of jazz is basically swapping out the chord that you think you should play with another one instead. So instead of playing G7, we play F major 7, or we can play an E triad. and then finally playing Lydian sound at the end. Okay, so of the progression. Well, it's been great for you guys to stick around with me for this one. I really hope you've enjoyed this session. I had a lot of fun working on this lick, and remember that if you're interested in finding out a few more positions of this lick, and if you want a PDF download of this one, then you can get it at FretDojo.com/PDF. That's FretDojo.com/PDF. So make sure that you look at that and get this one under your fingers, but then go a bit deeper. So find some more of these approaches that we've been working on through the lines, and you might be able to find some more approaches as well when you study this one. So as you can see, you can get a lot of mileage just from a little 4-bar idea like what we covered today. Well, I hope you enjoyed this live session, guys, and yeah, let me know if you got any questions. You can contact me on my website, FretDojo.com. You can email me there, and I'd be happy to help you out, and I'm on Facebook and all those kind of channels as well. Okay, one more thing I should mention is once again I'm doing a 30-day jazz guitar challenge. If you're interested in finding more out about that, you can get in touch with me. So that'll be closing in a couple of days at the time of this recording. For you guys that are watching the replay down the track, I do run that periodically throughout the year, so make sure you get on my email list to find out when that will next be on. Okay, well, that'll do for today, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Fret Dojo. Bye for now.